Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. Namaste and kia ora from New Zealand. My name is Roy Kaunds and I am a media professional. I first of all want to thank the team behind this talk series for giving me the opportunity to share a few of my experiences about what's happening with Hindus, with Dharma in New Zealand. New Zealand has been it's a lovely country. Compared to some other countries, we have very less racism here. Not that we don't have it, but it's very less, and people are very open, and it's a wonderful society. However, of late, especially over the last few years, some elements, probably with I would say a left-leaning ideologies, have tried to bring Indian politics into New Zealand. Now, while they are doing that, what has happened is directly or indirectly, they have started attacking Hindus, and especially in the guise of Hindutva, they are attacking the Hindu community. Although they claim that they themselves are Hindus and they come from a different ideology, but that's quite obvious. Now, it wasn't this bad even a few years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, but we have seen this trend, over the last few years, especially after the government of India introduced the Citizens Amendment Act, and later on in the end of 2020, when the farm protests began, apparently there were elements here which sought to build some congruences between what's happening in India and the Hindu community here, because a lot of the Hindu community here were actually supporting the policies of the Indian government. Anyway, that's another point. The story that I want to share with you is, how individuals have been targeted. So I'm a media professional. I have, many decades of experience in journalism. I was on the copy desk, I was a writer, a columnist, and then lately, till about a couple of months back, I was also a television presenter in New Zealand. I presented my own shows, I interviewed political leaders. I also did a weekly review of events that happened, in the political sphere. And I would give my analysis and comments on that along with the co-host, and sometimes I would do it alone. So around end of August, news started coming in, to us that there was a professor from Massey University who had written a white paper, and in that white paper, he had made some remarks about Hindus, Hindutva, and especially two organizations, that is the Chinmaya Mission in New Zealand and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad. He actually called the Vishwa Hindu Parishad people terrorists. And he said that the Chinmaya Mission were actually using the Vedas to foment Hindu supremacism. So his basic contention was that these are organizations which make Hindus masculine. Although he didn't use that word, those are mine. He's saying that by these organizations, by inculcating the Vedas and the Hindu scriptures and Hindu values to youth, they are making them masculine Hindus, which is a very bad thing, because these masculine Hindus then go on to become supremacists. And then he said that, then he sort of equated them with white supremacism. Now, even that would be the opinion, and we, as we normally do, we would ignore that. But what he did was, because he wanted some traction, some publicity for himself, he also went online and did a online lecture, which I think a very few people saw. In that lecture, he reiterated most of his points. Now, very cleverly, he did that a few days before the dismantling Hindutva conference was happening, all over the world, was online. And he was one of those academics who lent his name to this dismantling Hindutva series. Now, probably, I don't know, this is my conjecture, probably because he wanted some traction or he wanted some publicity, he had this online lecture. But what happened was, because of that, everything started unraveling, and the Hindu community in New Zealand realized that here was one person who was attacking the Hindus. So Many of the Indian Hindu organizations actually wrote to Massey University, where he is employed, and they asked questions of the university. However, the university, as we knew they would, did not take cognizance of the complaints and actually supported this professor. Now, uh, because the Hindu organizations had written to him, he went to the New Zealand Herald and he concocted a story saying that there were Hindu trolls in New Zealand who were trolling him, and it had become so bad that he had to even, seek. He couldn't go out of his house because he was afraid that he would be recognized and trolled by people on the street. Now that is a load of bunkum. Now, I took this matter up in my show, which I used to present, in October. And on the 1st of October, I took this matter up. I did not say anything about this professor or about what he wrote. My uh, thing was actually directed to the New Zealand Herald and the New Zealand security agencies. I said that this person, in the space of 15 days, has gone to the New Zealand Herald twice. The first time he says that he has been trolled by Hindus, and the second time he and his associates say that they have been trolled by Indians. So I said this is setting a very bad precedent because you can't can't say Hindu trolls or Christian trolls or Buddhist trolls, because trolling cannot be as part of someone's religion. You can say trolls. And so in that video on my show, I questioned the Herald. I said, when you yourself have mentioned in the story that you do not know who the trolls are and where they are from, how come you have used the word Hindu trolls? And then you go and say Indian trolls. So what I would like to do is, at this stage, I will play that video. And anyone who is watching this, I want you to make up your mind as to whether what I raised in my show, whether it was right or wrong.
I now want to move on and move away from the failures of the government and the pandemic to something which is more affecting the Indian community. Now, a few months ago, a person by the name of Mohan Dutta, who is a professor at Massey University, wrote a white paper. Now, he is also director of an organization known as CARE. So, rather, they work under the aegis of Massey University. So CARE comes out with a series of white papers, basically the statements about certain academic things. So what happened was, on the 9th of September, an article appeared in the New Zealand Herald saying that Hindu trolls were attacking Professor Dutta. Now, it was actually not good for the New Zealand Herald to use the word Hindu trolls. They could have said trolls, but not Hindu trolls, just because, like you can't use Christian trolls or Buddhist trolls or Muslim trolls, because that's a religion. You can't use that. You just use the word trolls. So when you say Hindu trolls, it puts all people who follow the Hindu religion, you paint all of them with the same brush. So that's what the New Zealand Herald did in that article. Now, the reason for the article was that Mohan Dutta had, in one of his white papers, which he had published in May, he made some disparaging remarks about the Hindu community, especially in New Zealand. He said that there were some extremist right-wing elements in New Zealand, and he called them terrorists. Now, I want to know, is the government aware of such Hindu terrorists here? And what are the Hindu terrorists planning? Are they planning a terror strike in New Zealand, the Hindu terrorists? Because that's what Mohan Dutta said. And he said that funding organizations should not fund any cultural activities of people who are connected to what he calls Hindutva. Now, Hindutva, for people who may or may not know, is a political ideology. Now, how you define it is up to the people on which side of the fence you are on. Mohan Dutta says Hindutva people are terrorists. and they are operating in New Zealand. Now, the reason why the New Zealand Herald was not right in using the word Hindu trolls was that in the article itself, the New Zealand Herald said that they don't know who the trolls are. It's very clear in the article. They say that we don't know who the trolls are. And Mohan says that the trolls are maybe from overseas. He has given no evidence that there are Hindu trolls in New Zealand who are trolling him. And yet, the Herald went and put an article saying that there are Hindu trolls who are trolling Mohan Dutta. So when that happened, some of Hindu organizations wrote to Massey University and to Herald, but they did not get too much of traction. In fact, they were ignored. Now, that would have actually probably died, its own death. But a couple of days ago, the New Zealand Herald again carried a story, and this time from Hindu, they used the word Indian. They said that the police are aware, or they have heeded the fact that there are Indian extremists in New Zealand. Now, this again is an attack on Indians. Does the government can the government make a statement? Can the GCSB make a statement to say that they have a list of Hindus and Indians who are terrorists? A few years ago, the GCSB came up with a report saying that there were 40 people who were spreading hate and they were keeping an eye on these people. We want to know how many of them are Indian Hindus, if there is such a list. And if there is such a list and these people are planning terrorist activities on the New Zealand soil, what is the government doing to get rid of these people? Who are these people? We want to know, because the New Zealand Herald has carried 2 articles talking about Hindu trolls and Indian extremists and Indian terrorists. We want to know who they are and what is the government doing to throw them out of this country or to punish them. We have had enough. We had the Christchurch massacre, we had the Newland attack. We don't want any more such incidents in this country. Is the police and the security agencies cognizant of Hindu Indian extremists? What are they doing? What are they planning? This is a question that we want to know. If there are no Hindu trolls and if there are no Indian extremists, was it right for the New Zealand Herald to actually go and put this in the headline? That's a question I would like all ethnic communities to ask themselves. Because today it is Indians, tomorrow it will be others. So one of the problems I have with the Herald's assertion is that now they've done it twice in a course of 15 days. They have mentioned Hindu and Indians in terms of trolls, and in both the articles, they have mentioned Islamophobia. So what they are basically saying is these people are targeting Muslims, which is, as an Indian in this community, and as any Muslim will tell you, is not true. It is not true. No Indian or no Hindu targets any person who is of the opposite faith or of another faith. But when you have stories like this in the media, it actually creates hatred where there is none. Today in New Zealand, Hindus and Muslims and people of all other religions live peacefully. Okay, we have had that incident in Christchurch, but that was an aberration. By and large, we have not had any huge sectarian issues here. But when sectarian issues are fanned by left-wing people for their own narrow political agenda, people of other communities will start looking at Hindus and Indians in a different light. This is the kind of hatred which leads to stabbings and attacks and abuse and even murders. Because there may be some person who suddenly gets into his or her head that these people from the other community, they're against us. And that's how all this issue starts. It's a classic left-wing ploy to divide and break communities. Let me tell you categorically that the Indian community and the Hindu community stands in solidarity with all other Kiwis. We do not spread hate. We do not look down upon any community. And in fact, when we are the victims of hate, we often overlook it. This has been one of the reasons that people are pushing the Hindu Indian community, because we always overlook the attacks that come on us, because we keep our head down, we contribute to the economy, and we lead our lives as ideal citizens. Show me one instance of terrorism or any brutality done in the name of the Hindu religion or because of the ethnic background of an Indian. Show me one. If you can't, then don't make these kind of assertions, because it hurts us, it panics us. Many of the students whom I spoke to, they said that they would rather now not join Massey University because they fear that the academic situation there or the academic atmosphere there will be not conducive if you are a Hindu Indian. What a sad state of affairs for Massey. What a sad state of affairs. When students decide that they don't want to enroll in the university because of the atmosphere which prevails there. Hundreds and hundreds of students come from India. Every year, they enroll in Massey and all other universities here in Otago. They spend $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. They take a loan and they come here. And imagine if they come here and this is the kind of atmosphere that they have to face up to in university. What does it say about New Zealand's education system to people overseas who come here to study? Would you want your children to come and study in such a situation or such an atmosphere where hatred prevails? I leave you with that question. Thank you for watching this show and for joining me, and I'll see you again next Friday, same time.
Right. So that was what I had put on my show. So this was just a part of the show. So it was a 30-minute show, but this is just the last segment of the show. And I must just tell you what happened before this. So I had actually written a letter of complaint to the New Zealand Herald, taking up this issue with them. I immediately received a reply from them saying that they did not agree with it, because I pointed out to them that your own article says that you don't know who the trolls are and where they are from, and yet you go and say that they are Hindu trolls. So what they cleverly did was, in the online news item, which is still there, they took out that sentence which says that they don't know who the trolls are, where they are from. So it doesn't look all that bad. But in the original print edition, which I showed on my show, they still, had that, and that's there, online. So this shows, the duplicity of the Herald, because when I complained to them about it, they went and took that line out so that we couldn't point fingers at them in future. And because of that, they did a follow-up story, and this time they got some of their ducks in a row. So we could not, really attack them, because from point of view of journalism, there was nothing much we could do for the second article, except for the fact that they used the word Indian trolls instead of Hindus. So they learned their lesson from the first article. So this is a very motivated article, one-sided article. It did not give both sides of the story. So when I took this matter up in my show, a couple of days later, the High Commission of India in New Zealand actually posted this segment of my show on their website and on their Facebook page without any comments. This really rattled these guys so much that they went to another news agency called Newsroom, and they attacked me, on that. Of course, to be fair to the guy who did the story, he was much fairer than the New Zealand Herald, but he did put their side of the story, but no one got back to me. Okay, now comes the real story. 2 or 3 days after my episode was aired on TV, and it's national TV, I started receiving, some people started trolling me. At first it was, things like, oh, you really don't believe that, do you? That Hindus don't attack Muslims. Now, it has to be very clear that I am talking in the New Zealand context. I mentioned that show me one instance of any Hindu doing any damage to a Muslim or any other person, non-Hindu person, in New Zealand. Now, I did not mention the word in New Zealand because it is understood that my context is New Zealand. I'm not talking about India. I'm talking about what's happening here. These guys started, saying among themselves, they started talking and saying, we need to teach this guy. He probably does not know. He's probably ignorant about, what Hindus are doing to other minorities. So what they did was they went into my Facebook. Most of my Facebook posts are private, but some were public. And I do post a lot of other news items, and I make comments on those as a journalist and as a commentator, as an analyst. I do, and I'm also a researcher, so I do. I bring out facts about certain things. Now, these are all things which cannot by any stretch of the imagination be called hate speech. You may get irritated by it because it's pointing out a flaw in your thinking or in your ideology or in your way of doing things. I, as a journalist and as an analyst, my job is to present facts. So there were some posts like that, which were public posts, and there were also some posts where there were memes or like jokes. They started posting these in their sites, and they said, "Oh, look at this fellow! Look at the hatred that he has for other communities." Now, in that episode that you saw, did I mention Sikhs even once? Did I mention Muslims even once? I mentioned Muslims in the context of Islamophobia, but I did not touch on Muslims at all. So it was first some Sikh groups. They started trolling me. It got very bad. They were trolling me every day. They were coming on my page. I finally had to block them. So then they started spreading the story among their group. So about 50 or 60 of them got together, formed a gang, and the trolling was, incessant and horrendous. One fellow said he will come and rape my daughter when the level 3 lockdown is lifted. Now we are still in level 3. So I went to the police and I lodged a complaint against these guys. So there were two. One fellow said that he would come and rape my daughter, and the other person said that he would pull down my shorts. He said, in the context that I'm wearing RSS shorts. I've never been a member of the RSS. I've never been a member of any Hindu organization ever in my life. I am a straightforward journalist. I'm looking at it from the journalistic lens. I'm not looking at it through the Hindu lens. I'm not looking at it from any other lens. Okay, I may be having, in my post is very clear that I support the current government in New Zealand. That's not a crime, is it? Now, these people who are anti-BJP and anti-government and all of that, they really, got upset. And even previously in my other episodes where I have mentioned, where I praised India, say, for example, the vaccination drive, or where, India got things right, I would often say good things about it on my show because the show is for Indians. And where they were criticizing India, I would probably give a other side of the story as to why that's happening. So when the oxygen crisis happened, for example, the reason was not that there was no oxygen, but the infrastructure was missing. So oxygen was sitting there in the railway station, but there was no infrastructure to take it to the hospitals, things like that. Now, when I would say anything which was positive about India, anything about infrastructure, anything, I would be trolled heavily. In fact, in one of my clips, which I put on TikTok, it got about 700,000, I think, hits. There were about 700 comments, and most of them, you could make out that they are from trolls. I was trolled very badly. Of course, in TikTok, it is worse than in Facebook because there they can say anything and get away with it. So they have been, keeping me under a watch. And even previously, when I stood, this is not the only show I produce other shows. So there was a show which was from center-right Pacifica group. And they, naturally, because they were center-right, the leftists here took offense. So when they went to the credits, they found my name as the producer on that show. So they started digging into my LinkedIn account and other accounts. And then there was trolling, and these are from the white leftists, the Kiwi. And they wrote blogs against me, and, they wrote stuff about me. So the fact is that these people are working in a network. and they actually, scratch each other's backs. Now, so one of the shows that I used to produce, they complained to the Broadcasting Standards Authority. We fought that. In the end, I left the channel because of certain issues. So related to my show on with Mohan Dutta. So to coming back to the trolling that happened, so they told me, then they went on to the network's page, official page, and they put negative comments. They brought our ratings down from 5 to 1. And they thought, and they were, so I took all the screenshots and I went to the police and I told them that this is a concerted effort to malign me, and they are actually physically threatening me. Yeah, in fact, one fellow said, does anyone have his address? So what does that mean? Isn't that a threat? So 2 cops came to my house, they interviewed me and all, and then they said, okay, the case is open. They sent me a mail saying that we couldn't find who the person is. Naturally, because the person who was trolling me, he's got a false name. He's the main guy, because there were about 50 other people and all their names and IDs were genuine. But this guy, the main chap who was orchestrating them, and I know who he is, but I have no proof. So I can't, tell that to the police. This guy, he started, trolling me so badly that in the end, after about 7 or 8 days, someone told him that you are actually, that is that chap, the troll, is giving me more publicity than I ever got, which is true actually in a way. And they put a hashtag against my name. They started calling me Sasta Arnab. So Arnab Goswami is a leading television journalist in India. I don't think I have, I probably have a very 5% resemblance that I have, especially the fact that I wear glasses and the way I do my hair. But except for that, I don't think I have any resemblance with him. So they started calling me Sasta Arnab, which means cheap Arnab. And they did the hashtag and they went, and the trolling was horrendous. Now, when Mohan Dutta tells the Herald that he was being trolled, he has not given any proof of who the trolls are. I gave the police 52 names with their comments and the kind of, and these are only the the comments which were really bad. There were so many other comments which were, some of them were academic, some of them were, which I did not bother about, because I say that, oh, maybe they have a different opinion to mine, and I agree with that. You can actually not agree with me, that's fine. But trolling, I gave the police, I gave them a Excel sheet with all the names and the comments and everything. And then the police come back and say that we don't know who this person is, and they leave it at that. Now, of course, the police here in New Zealand are being used for the border controls, and also I can understand that there is less personnel. But what happens if one of these guys decides to do an attack me, personally, because he does not agree with my views? Now, I can understand something where I have not mentioned the Sikhs at all. Why the majority of the people trolling me were from the Sikh community? So they kept saying that they think I'm from the RSS, which I've clarified that I'm not. I've never been a member. I've never been to an RSS meeting ever in my life. I've never been part of any temple trust or organization. I've never been office bearer. I've been an office bearer of community organizations. I've been a general secretary of one of the leading organizations in New Zealand, but never of a religious organization. But yet this trolling happened. Now, not only did the trolling continue for maybe 2 weeks, every morning they would put a post on my name. Good morning to the world, except to the hater Roy. Good morning, except for, this is what they kept on doing. And then the people would, start doing their comments. Now, in all of this, because of my background as a researcher, I started, researching just on the surface, found that many of the people were actually connected to Mohan Dutta. I know about one person, which I won't name, and that person actually went to the Broadcasting Standards Authority and put a complaint against me personally, not about my show. Now, he's such an idiot that you complain to the Broadcasting Standards Authority about something which was on the show. So you can tell them if you didn't agree with something, something was wrong, something was false. So nothing was wrong, nothing was false. So it's not about the show. He's complaining about me as a person posting on Facebook post that he does not like, and he's going to the Broadcasting Standards Authority. believe, how low level intellect these people have. And this guy is some sort of I don't know, I think he's some sort of doctor or something, of that sort. I don't know where they get their degrees, maybe some fly-by-night universities. So he goes and does this. Now, what I'd say is, you have a point of view, you don't agree with me, debate it. Talk to me about it. I may also not agree with you, but let's have a debate. You ask me why I said something, I'll give you my reason. But unfortunately, and this is the main point I'm trying to make, that kind of debate is finished. Today in New Zealand, and I guess in most parts of the world, and nothing to do with Hindus or Muslims or left wing, right wing, it is just that people are so entrenched in their viewpoint that they will just not accept that another person may have an opposite viewpoint or a viewpoint that they don't agree with. They just can't accept it. For them, there's only their truth, and only that is the truth. So this, we are, as they say, we're in the post-truth era now. So truth is no longer the, the pure truth. Truth is what I think, what I presume is the right thing. What I think is the truth is the truth. And this is what's happened with the left-wing people. They are so obsessed with their own truth that anything which anyone who doesn't agree with them, it becomes an enemy. So I am their enemy. If I don't agree with the viewpoint, if I support a particular political dispensation, I become an enemy. If I don't agree with something, I become an enemy. Now, this is one thing. The other thing which rattles them is, especially after and I can understand why they do it, especially after the rise of or the coming to power of the Bharatiya Janata Party in India, there has been sort of a revival, among Hindus. The Hindus have started believing in themselves. There was a time when, Hindus didn't believe in themselves. They were like the ostriches. And in fact, most of New Zealand Hindus are like that. They want to bury their head in the sand and just pretend that everything is fine. And unfortunately, I have to say this publicly, even some of the Hindu leaders are like that. They don't want to take on the issue head on. They would rather go in for a compromise formula, rather trying to, fly under the radar, preserve their business or their jobs, and not make a big issue of, thing. As a result, what happens is, these people who have nothing better to do when you get funding, they can keep on toying and keep on talking about what they want to do, or keep on, publicizing their agenda. Whereas the victims, on the other side, if they keep quiet, then it never comes to light. It's like, what they say about unreported rape. Often the perpetrator is not brought to justice because the victim decides to keep quiet. And that's exactly what's happening, to the Hindu community in New Zealand. We keep quiet. We say, let it go. It's not, what difference does it make? No one is going to listen to us anyway. And it is true, because the media is not with us, especially the mainstream media, whether it's television, whether it is a newspaper, as we saw with the Herald. We refuse to take cognizance. We refuse to even say that, I can understand they disagree with us, but they can say that, oh, thank you for bringing this to our life. But as per us, these are what, you read the reply that they give, it's a very, sort of a brushed off reply. They don't even care about your viewpoint because they are so sure about their truth. And this, unfortunately, is what's happening in New Zealand today. The time has come, as a friend of mine says, that we need to reverse the gaze. That, when people look at you, your the people oppressing you, they look into your eye, and the victims often put their head down. We need to look up and reverse the gaze and look into their eyes, and let them know that they will not, be able to get away with it. So one of the things which Mohan mentioned in his white paper, which most of us took objection to, was he talked about cultural artifacts. He says Hindutva. See, that is basically, although Hindutva is a political ideology, the way he uses it interchangeably. But then he keeps on saying that no, Hindutva is different from Hindu. I am a Hindu myself, he says, which we know that, what's the truth. So he says that Hindutva use cultural artifacts, items. I want to know from him, because he will not come on a debate with me. You will come on you will come on, some fly-by-night radio stations and news organizations who will not actually ask him the tough questions. So can you define the cultural artifacts of Hindutva? What are the cultural artifacts of Hindutva? Is celebrating Diwali a cultural artifact of Hindutva? Is celebrating Dasera cultural artifact of Hindutva? Is celebrating Holi or Makar Sankranti or something like that cultural artifact of Hindutva? What is a cultural artifact of Hindutva? And if you can prove it, show us the evidence that these are Hindutva cultural artifacts. What he's cleverly doing is, he's telling the funding organizations, he's telling them in his white paper, he says, don't fund these people. He says, when they come to ask you for funding, ask them questions about who they are, what they are. Now, the funding organization, how the hell do they know what's Hindu and Hindutva? For them, Hindutva and Hindu is the same. So he's telling them, don't fund these people. Basically, what he wants is, he does not want the public celebrations of Diwali in Parliament. He doesn't want the celebration of Holi. He does not want this, stuff which makes Hindus feel proud about themselves and they make them feel good about themselves. So there's masculine Hinduism, which these people are seeing. They are calling it fascism. So they can be masculine, they can be in your face, they can gaze into your eye. But when we do that, they say that we are fascists. So then they start playing a victim card, just like Dutta did. I am being trolled. Oh, I can't leave my house. I was trolled. I was, did he bring evidence to show that, people badmouthed him or, said anything, abused him? No evidence was provided there. He's not, in all the interviews, that he's not given a single evidence of what trolling he received. If people don't agree with him, is that trolling? If he, or some, let's say some, person who is not, not in that space, he says something about, what Mohan wrote, maybe harshly. That's not trolling. Trolling is what I receive for taking up a genuine question. And I was not even questioning Mohan, I was questioning the Herald and the security agencies. I said, do the security agencies know who these terrorists are in New Zealand? That was the only question I asked, as you saw in that video clip. And all these people, even in, if you go into my Facebook page, and you probably find that clip, and you can see the comments. You can see the names of the people who have commented. 90% of people have supported me in my own page, not in the network page. But one or two of them, you can make out very clearly who they are. And they have got all irrelevant stuff that they are asking. So what is the solution? And the solution is that to reverse the gaze, we need to, articulate our viewpoint. And that is something which, all the Hindu leaders, and I'm saying all, I'm not saying some, they are not willing to do. They're not willing to articulate their viewpoint. No one says abuse, no one says, take an aggressive posture, no one says go on a confrontational path. All that you need to do is articulate your viewpoint with facts. And I'm happy that, talk series like these and the organizers who organize this, they are doing it. They are using research, academia, they're going into published works. And this is what these people don't like. They like to have all their rubbish, in their small covens and in the small groups. They like to keep this there and spread all their poison through that. They don't like the light to be shown on them. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to shine the light on their misdeeds. All that they do is they hide in the darkness and they throw stones at us from behind a tree and then run away. I think the time has now come for us to decolonize Dharma. We need to reverse the gaze and shine a light on these people, and all the kind of rubbish that they spread and the kind of falsehood and misinformation that they spread. Of course, with the help of a friendly media and with the help of people who don't know better. Now, often I don't like to blame the media, being in the media myself. So I'm not saying that the mainstream media are doing it because they have an agenda. The fact is that most of the journalists, they just don't know. They have not been given the facts, and they're not given the facts because we don't connect with them. We don't tell them our side of the story. So they get one side of the story. And then very cleverly, like they did with the the second article where they attack Indians. So Mohan Dutta goes and makes a complaint to the press, and one of his friends from his own organization or a sister or a brother organization goes to give cover fire as a Hindu. And the Herald says, oh, we spoke to Hindus. So the Hindu you spoke to is actually a friend of the person who complained. And that friend says, oh, I am also a Hindu and I don't agree with it. And I ask the people who don't agree with you. Don't ask another friend and then say that we have spoken to other Hindus, so our reporting is balanced and fair. It is not. So these are some of the things that I think we should be talking about. It is important that we change the narrative. It is important that we bring this out in the open. Indians, by and large, I'm sorry to say, are not very loquacious. They are not very articulate, probably because they're afraid that they'll lose business, lose their job, and I can understand why they do that. A lot of them in private will, be very aggressive, but when it comes to public posturing, they disappear. So I think, it's time for different people to come together and in various ways, either academically, maybe in media, maybe even in, holding talk series like this, highlight what's happening so that people are aware. And finally, whatever we do, it needs to be interesting to the audience that we are targeting, because today attention spans are very small. So people don't have the time to sit and go into the nitty-gritty of an issue. So we need to be able to encapsulate what's happening and disseminate it to the people who want to know, but they want to know it in a nutshell, because people don't have time today to get into the root of the issue. So it's our job as researchers or people who are in the space, we have to disseminate this information to our audiences. So thank you very much for listening to me. I think I do not know if I've overshot my time, but thank you for joining in and listening to me, and for giving me the time and opportunity. And do let us know whether you agree with the things that we have said. Thank you so much.